The chair will briefly explain the format of this evening's meeting. It'll be the process this evening to call for items on the agenda. The commission will hear briefly from staff first, then the applicant or representative, then open the public hearing, which we are not having tonight, and hear from those in favor of or in opposition to the request. When you come to the podium, please clearly state your name and address for the record. Before closing the public hearing, both staff, applicant, and or representative will be provided an opportunity to respond, to provide additional information, and answer questions. After all interested parties have spoken, the public hearing will be closed. We will hear the closing remarks and alternatives from staff. The first item of the agenda is a specific use permit at 1730 North Jardo Road.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jacqueline Porter, representing this item to you tonight on behalf of the Planning Department. This is a request for a 160-foot telecommunication tower located at the property address of 1730 North Jardo. As a refresher, this subject property is located near the intersection of North Jardo Road and East Brook Avenue. The property is located east of Skyline East subdivision. Cross Point Free Will Baptist Church is there to the northeast of the subject property. The property is zoned CG with RSS to the north and to the south. It continues, the property is a storage unit. It continues to the north, and that's the CG, and then further north is light industrial, and it's a warehouse type structure, and then large lot single family is located to the east. Here's a street view of the subject property. The tower will be approximately 28 feet from Brooks Avenue and about 150 feet approximately from the east property line along Jardo. It's going to be there behind, we can kind of see the dually truck. It's going to be behind that, back in there, is the location of the tower from the street view look. Here's a site plan. The proposed 160-foot telecommunication tower is 111 feet and 6 inches from the nearest residentially zoned property. Section 23-113(1I)(1) states the tower must set back 110% of the height. This would require the distance to be 176 feet from the nearest residentially zoned property. The applicant has stated their intent to apply for a variance for section 23-113(1I)(1). This item was tabled on June 6th for additional information. The applicant provided additional information that should have been emailed to you. And here's a portion of the additional information. That we wanted to focus on, the wind low case are based on 3 seconds. Oh, I can read it so much better on here. 3-second gust at 700-year MRI. So I know there was a discussion about where it says about 4B, if there is wind and ice, they can hold up to 40 mile per hour with wind and ice speeds with the ice thickness of 1.5 inches. And then there was also the question about the fall zone, which is designed for a fall zone of 64 feet. The applicants are here, and it is my understanding they also have a presentation for you. So if you have any questions on specifics of the tower, feel free to ask them. Are there any questions for staff at this time?
Are there any codes relative to how close it can be to anything other than a residence, like the road, like Brook Avenue or anything? There's no code?
Our code currently does not.
So it's only residences?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Riley, did you have a question?
No, I think I'm good for now.
Okay. All right, I'd like to ask the applicant or representative to approach the commission, please.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Jared Fouts, and I live at 4014 West 80th Street in Prairie Village, Kansas, and I'm here tonight representing Vertical Bridge and T-Mobile in our request for a special use, a specific use approval for the cell tower. I know we went through quite a few details last time we were here, and I just want to be here to answer any other questions that you might have.
Yes, I have a question. I think staff referred to the fact that the tower had to withstand up to a 40-mile-per-hour wind. Is that correct, or is that figure different?
I would just defer to whatever the report says that was put together by the engineer, the licensed engineer. I don't want to speculate because I'm not an engineer myself, but whatever is stated in that report is certified and authorized by a licensed engineer in the state.
Well, my question would be, how safe is that, given, for instance, recently the Tulsa Metro experienced 100-mile-per-hour straight line winds? What are the contingencies for that type of scenario?
It does actually say on this report, the structure is designed to the following criteria. One of those criteria is 109 mile an hour ultimate wind speed with no ice per ASCE 760.
Okay, 109 mile per hour.
Correct, and 40 mile an hour with 1.5 inches of ice.
Okay.
That's what this is telling us.
All right, thanks, Riley.
No problem.
You answered my
Thanks,
question.
Riley.
And there is no fall zone that would accommodate a 160-foot tower such as this?
Well, this report is actually certifying the fall zone of, I think it was 64 feet.
It's out of 9 there.
Any other question for the applicant?
I don't know if this is specifically would be for the applicant or for staff. So assuming that we do allow this specific use permit, and assuming, let's just speculate that something does happen and this does happen to fall onto a property line, who is the liability on at that point? Is it the engineer that told us that it wouldn't happen? Is it on you guys?
The city of Stillwater can't be, or any political subdivision can't be held liable for approvals or for failure to enforce an ordinance or a code or something like that. So it would not.
Would not be on us.
Now, I mean, could they file a lawsuit? Absolutely. Will they? Probably. But typically, if you look at the limitations that are set out in the Governmental Tort Claims Act, they afford a lot of protections to public bodies.
And that would be similarly applicable to if the tower would fall into the Jardo, for instance?
Yes. And of course, we would have the ability to, I mean, let's assume it sits there for a period of time, which I can't imagine that they would let their telecommunications equipment sit there. But if it did, we would have the ability to remove it, and certainly would do that in partnership or cooperation, just like we would with a PSO, power pole, or other telecommunications provider.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Commission?
Oh, I guess I just struggle with the meaning of designed to a 64-foot fall zone. I mean, it's designed to meet a spec, but I don't guess there's any assurances that that's actual reality.
Well, again, I'm not an engineer, but my understanding of how these towers are designed is they don't just collapse down
Yeah.
like that. There are certain break points that they're designed to collapse almost onto themselves. I mean, there's still the fall zone radius, so there's still an area, surrounding that onto which it would collapse, but it's certainly not just collapsing onto itself.
Yeah, I guess I'd
Hopefully
feel
that
better
helps.
about sort of an explanation of how it would fail. Because it's designed to fall within 64 feet. But obviously the engineer has some analysis that shows it's going to fall in a certain way. And I don't know, I feel better about it. I have one of these little stamps that this guy has too, so.
Any more questions from commission? I take that as a no. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, although this is technically not a public hearing, I'd like to ask if there was anyone who would like to make comments from the public. Seeing no one, would staff approach and present the alternatives?
Yes, okay. All right, so I'm going to provide you with the findings again. The Land Development Code allows telecommunications towers to be permitted by the granting of a specific use permit. The Land Development Code allows for telecommunication tower a maximum to exceed 75 feet upon the approval of an SUP. The proposed cell tower use is an accessory use within an existing commercial development. The existing commercial use will remain at this location. The telecommunication tower will require a variance for Section 23, 113(1)(I)(1). So your alternatives are accept findings and recommend that the City Council approve the proposed SUP as presented, find the SUP to be acceptable with the conditions, and recommend approval with stated conditions. Find that the SUP is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impact of the surrounding vicinity, and do not recommend that the City Council approve the SUP. Or find the additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation and table this request to a certain date.
One thing that I would like to note for the Planning Commission, as you know, I have spent a lot of time going back over and watching the video of the prior meetings, is that if it is the will of the commission to recommend that the City Council approve the specific use permit, I would probably make it conditional upon approval of the variance through the Board of Adjustment, because there is a deviation from the setback. I think that way there's no, that way everyone has a clear understanding of the condition that would be required.
How would that request for variance be conveyed to the Board of Adjustment?
Well, they would fill out an application and just go through the standard
Oh, the
process.
applicant.
They would.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further questions from the commission to staff?
I have more of a comment.
Make it.
First, I'd like to thank Jared for not embarrassing me that my question's answered on the first page.
Yeah.
Second to the bottom paragraph, thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that helps. I missed that, so it explains why it's going to fail a certain way. So I feel better.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, thank you, staff. Okay, we need to call for a motion. Do I hear any motion?
I'll motion to find that the SUP be acceptable with the conditions that the variance is approved with the Board of Adjustment, and recommend approval with those conditions.
I would second that.
Okay, the motion has been stated and seconded. Take a vote now.
So we're gonna use alternative 2 to find the SUP to be acceptable with the conditions as stated by Mr. Prather, that the variance is approved by the Board of Adjustment.
Mr. Williams. Yep, just making sure you got it right.
Mr. Prather seconds. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the meeting summary for June 6th. Do we have any comments or corrections that need to be made? Okay, need to call for a motion and a second regarding the meeting summary.
I make a motion to accept the meeting summary of the meeting of June 6th.
Second.
Motion passes 3-0.
3-0, yes.
Okay. Do we have any additional comments by legal or anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, the next planning commission meeting will be Tuesday, July 11th. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And we stand adjourned. I'd also like to remind the Planning Commission that next month is kind of odd, so both meetings are back